Are we live? Are we live? Are we live? Let us know if we're live because it is Giants game day between the heated rivalry of the New York Giants and the Denver Broncos, as we all know. Such a big rivalry. How we doing, Grump? Are we live? People are saying we're live. We're live.
We live.
We're live.
Looks like we live.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I gotta be honest. I hate the 4:00 start. I'm antsy. I want this game to start.
Yeah, so let's do a little live planning on air. So think we'll want to go live around like 9:15.
Yeah, it's fine.
When does halftime usually start? Because I guess we could do like plan for 9:15, and then if halftime is like
Halftime of the Sunday night game, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Who is the Sunday night game today? Because games can go really fast or slow as hell.
I believe it's Falcons and 49ers. Or maybe that's a double Monday Night Football game. I don't know. How about the Jags getting destroyed at home? Yeah, it's Falcons and 49ers.
Yeah, it's Falcons 49ers.
We'll probably go live around 9:15. But how's the chat doing? It's a nice casual Sunday morning. As much as I don't like the 4:00 thing because I'm antsy for it, it's impossible to watch, like, just relax and watch football in the 4:00 hour after a 1:00 game, because you're thinking about the Giants game. For us specifically, we're putting together notes and everything, rewatching. Where at least with the 4:00 window, I get to be forced to just watch the 1:00 games. And unfortunately, we're 4:05 instead of 4:25 though, so we may end up actually missing the end of those games.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to end up happening. I don't know. It's just, I think normally I wouldn't really care if this were someone, but because of just the trajectory of the season, the way this game kind of feels, the way the trash talk kind of started I just want this to get on with it, because I can't even like open Twitter to see like if there's like news or anything like I should be worried about, which we got to talk about. Victor Dimukeji, Dre Greenlaw, and Abdul Carter. But I can't even like open Twitter without just being like bombarded with a ton of trash talk, which just makes me want to like throw it in somebody's face when Bo Nix gets absolutely thrown to the dirt. You know,
and if the Giants lose, all you got to do is tweet is like, "Is this your guys' Super Bowl?"
That really does seem to be like like that's like a recording. Like you can just bank on that being a good response.
Yeah, that's just go to. If the Giants lose today, this beating a 2-4 team is the Broncos Super Bowl. But Mr. Bobby Skinner, why is your nose so red? I don't know. I almost thought about not going live. I just showered and shaved, and I guess that might have something to do with it from going hot to cold. I don't know. But I jumped in front of the camera, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on there? That's a really red nose." So I don't know. Maybe I'm a freaking reindeer. I'm about to freaking fly out of here.
Woo.
So yeah, the trash talk went from. So I do want to, like, we didn't do this on the podcast because it's a podcast of a previewing a game, and it's not about Twitter. This where we can be a little more relaxed, kind of explain it. So here's the timeline of it. The Giants report, who's at training camp all the time. I've been on his podcast. He's a good dude. He tweeted out being like, "I trust that Andrew Thomas is going to handle Nick Bonitto, but it is a matchup I'm really looking forward to." Right? Pretty simple. Fair enough. Like, Andrew Thomas is great. Nick Bonitto is a really good player. And Broncos fans, for some reason, think Andrew Thomas is just like trash, like or average or whatever. And they're like, "Well, he got 2 sacks on Joe Alt." And I'm like, "Well, one was on a fullback, and you got one on Jordan Mailata." It's like, yeah, Jordan Mailata.
Also, Joe Alt is a second-year player and is playing out of position at the left side.
Yeah, and again, like, Jordan Mailata is just not on Andrew Thomas's level. But anyways, whatever. So that turned trash talk. But that was like, that's just normal stuff. And then Jonathan Cooper answered a question about Jackson Dart, his playing style and keeping him in the pocket, and started talking about
everything but football.
Yeah, it was like, oh, he'd like to do his dance moves and his chains. I guess it's good for him to have something. And then we play, and so that was disrespect at Jackson Dart. Is it the most disrespectful thing in the world? No, but it's shit talk, and it's and I welcome it. I like
absolutely.
Like, I welcome that, because then we get the shit talk back, and it's whatever. And then Nick Bonitto tweeted out, most delusional fan base I ever seen, because the Jonathan Cooper thing turned into like, well, Andrew Thomas is going to handle Nick Bodine, and I do trust that, right? Like, I don't trust I do not trust the Giants' offense versus their pass rush, to be real. I don't. I do think this is going to be the toughest matchup for Jackson Dart. I think it's totally different than what he's faced the last 3 weeks. I'm not worried about Nick Bonino because of Andrew Thomas. So then he deletes that, and then Kayvon takes a GIF from what's the movie? It's a great movie. Goodfellas. And then Abdul Carter says, "Put your 3D glasses on," which no one knows what it means. And then it turns into the fans making fun of like ACL tears and players that died. And so I've stayed away from it the last 2 days. I was like, all right, well, this isn't as fun anymore. It's fun when the players are talking shit and you're talking about Andrew Thomas handling like Benito, and then it just turns into, no offense, but 16-year-olds on Twitter trying to be edgy and having their Twitter troll accounts. And then it's like, I'm just going to enjoy my Saturday and not pay attention to any of this.
100%. I always forget too, because like there are people I've been following on Twitter for like a decade at this point. And I view most people as my peers when I talk about like, when I respect people's opinions and stuff, like talking ball and whatever, like I just view everyone as my peer. Age doesn't really matter. And then I forget that like 99% of Twitter is people under the age of 20 and they don't know anything at all. And, you know, they're just, you know, getting their kicks out of just being as mean as possible. Well, it's like, this is not for me.
There's young people who on Twitter are good at talking ball. You know,
of course. Yeah, no.
But there's also like, sometimes you do have to remember when you see a face, and again, there's faceless accounts that are 50 that are just total douchebags. Mm. But it's just like, all right, well, now it's turned into like edgelords on Twitter trying to be funny. But I think this is going to be a tough game. We obviously covered it all in our preview pod, but like, this is very different than what Jackson Dart has faced in his first 3 games. One, the pass rush is legit. In fact, they've played essentially 3 bad pass rushes and for 3 Jackson Dart games, and 3 bad pass rushes that don't rush the passer or don't blitz. You know, so you don't like, who's the best front 4 player they've played over the last 3 weeks? Is it Tuli Tulipolo from the Chargers? Khalil Mack was out for the Chargers. From the Saints, maybe it's Cam Jordan or Curtis Granderson, but those guys, Carl Granderson, Brian Brzee had the best game out of those guys. And then last week, you know,
I think, yeah. I think when you look at the Saints game, that ended up being one of the tougher matchups, even though if you throw out the names, it's not really. But like when you play from behind like that, it allows people to just play one-dimensionally and get away with it. So you have like Carl Granderson can just pin his ears back and just run at the quarterback.
And
game again, situation really can change things. Yeah,
like the best pass rusher in that game for the Saints was Brian Brzee. Like he was the only guy who was getting wins.
And honestly, that's going to be the issue with this year for Jackson Dart, because I think the tackle spots are pretty rock solid. You know, Jermaine Illuminor is one of the better right tackles in the league without question. Andrew Thomas is Andrew Thomas. I think, you know, good pass rushers on the edge, they're going to have the really good ones. You can always add chip help, you know, whatever, but like the really good interior rushers, we don't have really good interior protection, and John Michael Schmitz is out. So, and again, like, you know, insert your favorite John Michael Schmitz sucks joke in here. But at the end of the day, he's a starter for the reason because he's the best center they have on the roster. And he's never really in the wrong place or making mental errors. You know, it's a physical thing. He's not the greatest center, but he's in the right spot and he can delay pass rushes and, you know, get help from John Runyon and GVR at times. But, you know, GVR's basically my age, which makes him over the hill by football standards, and he can get overwhelmed by a really good interior rusher. John Runyon's average. You know, I'm not going to sit here and say John Runyon does anything in particular.
But he's been
badly.
worse this year than last year too. You know, like he's struggled. Like Brian Brzee was winning against him. So,
but Brian Brzee's good.
Yeah. But the Broncos bring that interior pressure. They blitz, which is something the Giants haven't faced with Jackson Dart really. They also stack the box. Which hurts the run, which makes the run game much tougher for the Giants, which they haven't faced with Jackson Dart. So like, and now we're really at a disadvantage at the wide receiver spot. You know,
Yeah.
like I know Slayton is in bad graces right now, but like if
He's
they
a
got a corner that
receiver
can
to
lock
run
up one
routes.
receiver, you know, so that's kind of what it is. So it's going to be a tough matchup offensively. Defensively, I like what the Giants can do, and if they can hold them to like 17, 20 points, then I think the Giants have a chance.
This is a team that only scored 13 points against the worst Jets team I've seen in forever.
Yes. Again, and their excuse was like, "Oh, we knew the defense was going to play good." It's like that's a reason to take more chances on offense because you know
that's a horrible excuse. Because when you win by 2 points, any fluky play can end the game for you. You fumble a snap and you could lose that game. That's a terrible excuse, and it's also just bullshit. It's not true.
Let's see, what do we got?
I think
like this is what the Twitter thing has turned into is like Broncos put in BTA, belt to ass. It's like, all right, everything's belt. I know that's the phrase of the season, but that's when it turns into like, all right, well, this is just normal Twitter land.
Have the Broncos put the belt to ass to anybody yet this year? Just throwing that out there.
And isn't belt to ass illegal now? You know, I thought you're not allowed to do that anymore. Brzee is an animal. I like Brzee coming out, but I think he's been a little less good than I was expecting. This is his third year, right, Brzee? Yeah, because he came out in the Deontay Banks draft. So let's get to some of the questions. Get some sun, Bobby. I know. Trust me, I know. This damn Giants season has had me freaking inside nonstop. Next weekend, doing a little getaway for the wife's birthday, so I'm going to get some nice sun.
Oh, nice.
Next week. Because I freaking need it. I look like I live in New Jersey. Like I don't live in Florida to not, you know, have some sun. Let's see. Let's get this. Let's hit this with some chats. We're gonna do guess the inactives at the end because it's a 4:00 game, so there's no rush on that. Dude, think Abdul as a go for today. So he showed up on the injury report as limited. I do think he's playing, but
it's a matter of what capacity is he playing.
And it's not even this game. I just see hamstring, and I'm like, shit. Hamstrings linger. That sucks. Hamstrings get worse if you put too much pressure on them. That is my worry. I'm not talking about this individual game. It's just like, oh gosh, please don't let this be something that can get worse, because if it can get worse, it always does in New York Giants land when it comes to injuries. So I just hope he's healthy. And it was, you know, got a little bit of tightness or something out of practice. I don't know. But that is something that must have popped up on Friday, because he wasn't on the injury report on Thursday. And then he was, you know, happened on Friday. He was talking to the press afterwards like he was going to play. So I fully expect him to play. I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried about, like, hopefully this doesn't get worse.
I mean, I also wonder in what capacity that allows him to play. Now, also, they activated Victor Dimukeji to, you know, replace Chauncey Golston, who's not going to play, didn't make the trip. But, you know, he might have an increased role as a
bad.
Result. Yeah, that's not good.
That's the nice thing about Chauncey Golston, is having that third guy. Because Chauncey Golston outside the first game has played the run really well. Mm-hmm. He's obviously missed some times, but like he's been a beast in the run game. But I
honestly think we'll see more Kayvon today.
Yeah, which has been good for the Giants, because Kayvon has been playing really well. Ryan McBride says, help me pick a wide receiver anytime touchdown. I mean, you just got to go Wandale. That's the safe thing, right?
Yeah.
But there's no safe one for the Giants. Like, there's one that they're going to run it in if they get down to the goal line. And asking any of those guys to create an explosive is just like, I'm not asking Wandale to create an explosive on back-to-back weeks. It's not reliable. But I think Wandale is going to get targeted. I mean, I picked him 1-1 in our fantasy draft because he should get targeted a ton this week. Like, this should be the week where you target Wandale Robinson a ton, right? You don't, like, Lil Jordan Humphrey is going to get, you know, covered by Patrick Surtain most likely. And then you're going to have Jalen Hyatt, who I just don't trust to do anything if they're playing man coverage, except for maybe win a deep ball. But that can't be your offense is thrown to him. So if they put Riley Moss on Lil Jordan Humphrey, okay, that's where I can see Lil Jordan making some plays. If they do vice versa, where they put Surtain on Lil Jordan and Jordan, and then Moss on Hyatt. That's tough. But Hyatt could also burn Moss as well too. So it's
and
more
again,
the tight ends and Wandale. Like
tight ends and Wandale are going to, and I think for Little Jordan Humphrey, it's just going to be a matter of like getting him in size advantage things.
Yeah, and something that Brian Dable did this against the Vikings last year, and Brian Flores, and this is a very different defense than Brian Flores, but they like to send their linebackers. They'll send a couple nickel blitzes, and like that. One of the ways to counteract that, to like know where they're coming from, is to get in heavy formations. Now that can backfire on you, because if your run game's not good, then you end up in 3rd and long, and that's when those defenses are at their best. Hence the Vikings week 1 game last year, right? Where it's like, I understood it. And I even said it on the preview of that game. Like, one of the things you could do to counteract them sending blitzes from everywhere and stuff is just get in heavy formations, and they kind of just got to line up and play in a base look and base coverages. When you spread out is when they're able to do more of their, be more creative with their defense. But if you're doing that and you're not staying ahead of the chains with the run game and whatever, passing game you're getting out of those formations, then you kind of have to scrap it, because you're just going to keep creating third and longs for you.
Some of the good thing of that is that, number one, this is the second game back for Tyrone Tracy, so still probably going to be not in his full workload, but this is not really a game that caters to Cam Scatterbu running between the tackles, right? Because you have really good linebackers, they stack the box, etc. But Tyrone Tracy being able to, be a threat on the edge and kind of get outside is something that can work. And also you have 2 tight ends that I think can be legitimate blockers and route runners out of like a standard Y formation, right? So you can get into a heavy formation and still run a play action pass off of it instead of just relying entirely on the run. So you can use that formation in multiple different ways, and you're not just telegraphing that you're running the ball.
Yeah. So, and with Tracy too, like, I want to see Tracy have a good game here, right? Like, this is, I feel like he's just kind of been thrown away as a player because of Scatterbu, but like, he was viewed as like an advantage last year and a good draft pick. And he was the one draft.
I still feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we've talked about this a lot this year because of how last year's circumstances are with the GM and the draft class and stuff. I was like, we always over it. Like, I was like, I promise you, you're most likely overrating the rookies right now. Right. But I was like, Tracy may be a little overrated, but it's like, I think he's a hit, right? Like, I don't think we're going to look back and say, oh, this guy, remember when we thought he was good? I always thought Tracy was going to be that, but you got to get Tracy in space and allow him to make some plays with that speed. So that's something you got to watch for. Playoff P says, how many babies did the Giants have this year? Congrats to Coach Brasillo. Yeah, dude, everyone's having babies. So Carmen Brasillo, Dexter Lawrence, Aaron Stinney, John Runyon, Greg Van Roten, Deontay Banks. In fact,
Illuminor too?
Huh? Illuminor too. So Andrew Thomas is the one who's like, man, I got all this money. I ain't trying to spend it on kids.
I saw somebody on Twitter said Daniel Jones left and everyone started fucking.
Yeah. So it's very funny that in training camp, I decided that if someone is having a kid, I just make it sound like they are actually the ones birthing the child. And I didn't realize this was going to be the year where
you were going to be able to spam that.
Yeah. So it's like any normal Talking Giants Nation show joke. It starts off as a one-off and then turns into something that's going to last for life. So let's read them. Carmen Brasillo won't be at the game because he's having a baby. Aaron Stinney not at practice today because he's having a baby. Dexter Lawrence not at practice today because he had a baby. Jermaine Illuminor not practicing today because he's having a baby. Greg Van Roten won't practice today because he's having a baby. Where's the Deontay Banks?
Deontay Banks had 2 babies.
Yeah, I must have said twins. That's what it was. I got to make sure I put baby in the keyword. Deontay Banks not at practice today because he had twins last night. So that's, again, anytime I create a little bit, the Giants are like, you get like, yes, more. Very funny.
So wait, on a real note though, what impact, if any, do you think there is on Carm not being there? I feel like it's minimal, but at the same time, this is a huge pass rush. The defense, like, disguises coverages, sends blitz. So communication is going to be key, and to be able to like look at the iPad or whatever, the Microsoft Surface, and like identify what the hell happened and fix it going forward might be key in this game. So
I think the assistant O-line coach, James Ferentz, I think he's got their protections down and stuff. So it's position coaches are more fundamental and week to week.
That's what I figured.
More so than individual game. So I don't think it's a huge deal, but it's good to see. Michael Chambers said, "Good morning, guys. Let's get this stuff." I wanted to show. I looked at Twitter and I saw something very funny. Let me see if I can share my screen. I can share my screen. Let me not cheat. Let me just actually share the screen. So don't read the top tweet first. Read the tweet that's being quote tweeted. Adam Schefter, when Vikings quarterback suffered week 2 high ankle sprain, doctors expected it to be a 6 weeks injury. Nothing has changed. It still looks like a 6-week injury, which means McCarthy would miss next week and possibly be able to return in week 9 at Detroit. And then quote tweeted from after the injury. JJ McCarthy is expected to be sidelined 2 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. With McCarthy out, Vikings won't. So it's just the insiders are just so full of shit. It's crazy how much they are just propaganda. Bobby, how do you like the new NASCAR 25? Yeah, it was the mini bye week came at a good time because I was able to play it. I'm not gonna be able to play it probably now for a while, but I actually like it a lot. I think the driving is the most realistic I've ever had for a NASCAR game.
Do you have the steering wheel?
I do, but I don't use that yet. I gotta get like a rig, because if you just put it on like a table.
No, it's got to get like locked on.
Yeah, because it's like, and so you're like choked up on it, and it's like that's not a natural way to. It's just so. And when you're getting new to the game, it's probably not best to play it that way if you don't have. But yeah, I got the steering wheel. I got it for a birthday gift. Let's see. What do we got? Going to the game today. Should I wear a Dart or Burns jersey today? I think it's got to be a Dart, right? Like represent the quarterback when all this shit talk's happening. Oh, did you see Giant Insider tweeted some Broncos reporter being like, Dart's going to be humbled. He's talking all this. It's like he didn't say anything. What's going on here?
Was it Troy Rank?
Yeah, I think that's who it was. I messaged it to myself.
Yeah, I followed him for a while. He sucks he's like a total homer reporter kind of way, where like outside of like the Colorado Avalanche, there's nothing really to be,
he's very little too.
Yeah, these things tend to go hand in hand.
Did you see Patrick Surtain? Smoke him if you got him. Like again, that's the trash talk I like.
Well, here's the thing. Football's unique in that you have a game every week and there's all this time in between. Like no other sport really has that. So like the trash talk to me is part of it. Like it's such a big part. And like even at the high school level with like, like trashing other teams' schools and stuff like that. And like it's all part of it and it's all natural. So I love it. And the only time it's not natural is when you're just routinely terrible and you just expect to lose.
Yeah. Which has been
the case.
Yeah. And Nick Benito being like, well, you guys are delusional. Yeah. Okay. And dude, so is everybody. Actually, as much as we are delusional, the more delusion came from them being like, who's Andrew Thomas? That's
delusional.
Yeah. Dude, and it's been so long since the Giants have played the Broncos, week 1 of 2021. Dude, it's crazy to think of like how different scenarios were at that time. One, this was the hardest because I always, for the preview pod, I always put a picture of,
Is it week 1 or week 3?
It was week 1. It was a home opener. So many things have changed since then. That was obviously the year that we were really excited about them. They got Galladay and all that stuff. But remember, that was coming off the Andrew Thomas preseason game where he struggled against Josh Uche. And we're coming off a week where he dominated Josh Uche. And then, he played really well in that Broncos game, and he was just good after that. But Patrick Surtain got burned by Sterling Shepard for a touchdown. in that game. But there was usually I'm able to find pictures of like a Giants player playing against that team. This was the hardest ever. If you go look at the preview pod tweet, where it's just like Dexter Lawrence was kind of in the background because they don't take any pictures of the trench players unless they're getting sacks. So like there was no Dexter Lawrence or Andrew Thomas. Graham Gano is injured. Darius Slayton is injured. And then Casey Kreider, if you look up Casey Kreider Broncos, you're going to get all the pictures of him on the Denver Broncos. So
Right.
it was very hard to find a picture. Remember when Joe Judge challenged a touchdown after it was already reviewed? Was that the Broncos game? I do remember that. I didn't remember that. Thought that might, yeah. Let's see. Oh, we got a new member. Jacob, thank you. Memberships don't really do much on this channel, but I do thank you very much. I mean, they support us. What I mean is they don't do much for you. We're at 26 minutes. Let's do guess the inactives, even though this is probably a very easy week because
it's like a coin flip on the last spot, right?
Yeah, let me figure it out. I don't have a pen, a paper pad, a legal pad, so I'm going to take my water bill and write them out on there.
So I can list off the guys who didn't even make the flight. That makes it easy.
Yeah, so just do that. I was going to go look that up, but you got Slayton.
So Darius Slayton, Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles,
Golston,
Bozeman, and JMS.
Okay, so that's 5 of the 7.
Yeah.
I mean, this is easy. It's just Neal and Jameis.
That's what I have, yeah.
Yeah.
But it could be James Hudson because one of the things that Dan Duggan pointed out is that with no JMS, if there's an injury to Austin Schlottman, then their emergency situation is to slide GVR over and bring Aaron Stinney in, which puts you thin at guard. So there is a chance that they'd rather have Neal active than Hudson, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm still going with Neal. I mean, he's the one that they picked. So, yeah, Schlottman is starting. So, so for the guess the inactive counter on the year, I am 35 of 39, and you are 33 of 39. So you're not going to be making up any ground this week.
No, because we have the same list.
Yep. Yeah, I have to do a good job of not looking at anybody's because then I'm like, oh, this makes sense, and I don't want anyone else's logic to leak into mine. But this is a very easy week. In fact, we should write our list as soon as the transactions come out.
They came out like super late, didn't they?
Because they're in the Broncos time zone, so it's not according to like the 4 o'clock like roster transactions. It's according to the game that you're playing. That's like why on Thursday Night Football they could do it on game day. I think they put Bo at guard before Neal. I actually need to watch the assistant coaching press conferences, and I'm sure they didn't ask Carm Brasillo about this, but I don't wonder if Neal or Bo has even practiced anything but tackle. He didn't do any at training camp.
Yeah. I'm not sold on that Bo at guard this year kind of thing.
And I would probably like him there over Evan Neal, but I don't think he's practiced anything at guard.
I wonder when, if at all, Josh Azudu gets elevated out of IR.
I think that would be if like John Runyon gets injured this week or whatever. They would be like, okay, now we're gonna put Josh Azudu on the active roster and put him above Evan Neal. So,
without a doubt, I actually think there's a chance he would go above Aaron Stinney because they have to make a decision on what they want to do with him. And whatever we may think of him, the fact is that they kind of like him, and he also is super versatile. They can plug and play him in a lot of different.
And if he sucks, you can just bench him 1 quarter in too.
Exactly.
Are people overrating Bo?
A little bit, yeah.
This is your answer. If your thought is we can let Jermaine Illuminor walk because we could just start Bo at right tackle, then yes, you're overrating Bo. If you think he's a good young piece, and you'd like to see him get an opportunity at right tackle eventually, then I don't think you are. Call it a comeback. Hey, guys, can you talk about the kicking game? With a game like this, I feel like every point will be important, and my confidence is low in our kicker. Haven't heard many discussing this. So, Jude McAtamney did miss an extra point against the Eagles, and I want to look up his stats. But because he hasn't really been relied on at all this year, let's see, he's kicked 1 field goal. No, he's kicked 2 field goals. One was the longest one was
It was like 33 yards or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was his longest field goal kicked as a 31-yarder, so less than an extra point. And then he is 7 for 8 on extra points. So that's not good, right? Now, if he goes the entire season and he misses 1 extra point, that's good. But 7 for 8 is not good. He was benched his last year at Rutgers. And obviously there's been 2 years since then, since he's been able to just work at his craft. And not many kickers get the opportunity to just work at their craft like that. They either make it to the NFL and are competing, or
they sell insurance.
Yeah. So maybe he's improved, but that has been because he hasn't been asked to do anything. I still am like, I don't trust this. And I understand maybe Younghoe Koo sucks in practice, and he's sucked his last 4 or 5 games as a Falcons kicker, so it's not a defense of that. But yeah, I have no confidence in Jude McAtamney, to be honest.
Yeah. So what sucks about this, and I think that he's a perfect person to put on the IPP because to use the IPP for, because it's
National Pathway Program.
Yeah, it's a really, like you said, you can just sit there and just keep kicking until you get better at it, and that's it. Learn all the nuances, especially in East Rutherford with the wind and whatever. But it goes back to just the mishandling and the over trust in Graham Gano. Like all offseason, they should have just gotten the cap savings from Graham Gano, brought in a real kicker, and continued this McAtamney thing on the IPP at the time. Now they're in this situation where they had to take Younghoe Koo, who might just be suffering from yips. So as much as I don't trust McAtamney, I can understand them being hesitant with Younghoe Koo also. And I believe that they had like an in-practice competition to decide whether it was going to be Koo or McAtamney, and it turned out to be McAtamney. So when you have the yips, there's no cure for that. That's just you got to learn to shake it off.
Yeah. So. Obviously, Younghoe Koo is a more talented kicker, but that's where I agree with you, where it's like, hey, I won't say that they're wrong in picking Jude McAtamney over Younghoe Koo. It always goes back to why in the offseason. It was the only thing in the offseason that was like, this is really stupid. This is really stupid. You could save money by cutting Graham Gano and bringing in a young player, right? And Ryan Fitzgerald, I'm going to say his name a million times, went undrafted. You had 2 7th-round picks. You could have gotten him or made him your first priority as a UDFA. For the Panthers, he is 10 for 11 on field goals with a long of 57. His only miss is a 50-plus yarder. Hell, it might have even been a 60-yarder, but I don't have those numbers. He's 12 of 13 on extra points, so he has missed an extra point. And he's like one of the best kickoff guys in the NFL, right? Where he's like, where these are becoming very important. And granted, Jamie Gillen's been good at that outside of one last week, but he's been good. So I want to see
I would have taken Rodrigo Blankenship over this situation. You know what I mean? Like, there are a lot of really cheap options that are better than being backed into the corner that they're in right now.
Yep, 100%. I'm looking up this because I want to see how long was his miss. He missed a 55-yarder. It was short. Oh, come on, Ryan Fitzgerald. You can't have it short, even though he did make a 57-yarder. But all right, I mean, we're at 33 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun, Grump.
Hell yeah.
Anything you want to say before we go?
Well, I guess I have one last question for you. Is Dre Greenlaw's activation extra concerning for you? For me, it means linebackers get fresh legs. I don't think he'll get like a lot of snaps, but if guys need a blow, whatever at altitude, which I think people talk about that way more than it really affects anything, but it allows them to rotate their linebackers a little bit more. So I think it's, a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I don't have much thoughts of it because it's like I haven't seen him on film for the Broncos or anything. So I just don't. And their linebackers have been good blitzers. It's Singleton and then what's the other guy's name? Pull it up. But they've both been good blitzers, but obviously Greenlaw's probably a better player than both those guys.
It's Singleton and
Justin Strnad or whatever. So obviously Greenlaw is better than that guy. But like they've both been good at blitzing. So that's where I'm more worried about them. So yeah, obviously a little bit.
And people keep saying there are liabilities in coverage. I think the tight ends are gonna be a big deal, and the middle of the field's gonna be a big deal.
Yeah. I have not watched the Nets preseason, to be honest. But thank you for asking, because the Nets season is right around the corner. What's the first game? They don't play in Orlando this year, which sucks.
I've been to Denver, man. I'm telling you, it's really not that big a deal.
Ryan Clark would disagree. First game is Wednesday. Let's see what the stats have looked like in the preseason.
I have run up the stairs to the very last seat in the stadium, dude.
Cam Thomas has been doing well. Am I tripping? This looks like last year's. Oh, yeah, this is last year's preseason stats. Where's this year's preseason stats? All right, that's enough. We'll see you guys when we see you. And live after the game. So subscribe. We'll see you after the game, probably around 9:15. Until then, let's go Big Blue.